everyone. Today my partner Gauri and I interviewed the school counselor about mental health. Here's what she had to say. What is it like to have a balanced well-being for teenagers?
Okay, so when we hear the word well-being, we always think it's always about being happy, not having any stress and managing everything in a very balanced way. But we all know it's not possible to have everything, getting balanced. Your education, your sports, everything we cannot balance all the time. So to have a balanced well-being means actually having a good emotional balance or resilience, we would say. Again, sadness, anger, hopelessness, these are very normal emotions, and not only as teenagers, we all can go through that time to time, right? But being able to bounce back even when you're feeling sad, upset, angry, you having better coping skills to bounce back is one of the important factors any teenager should have.
What are the most common challenges you see among teenagers?
Yes. So irrelevant of the age, we all go through different types of mental health related challenges. Since we are talking about teenagers today, I'm sure you also might have heard about anxiety, stress, depression as very common problems that teenagers go through. So if I may very briefly mention about these conditions and the warning signs. Stress and anxiety, if we talk about, there could be physical symptoms such as headaches, sleeping problems. They might even experience some appetite issues. Some might feel like eating more and some might not feel like eating at all. Sleep also, some might not sleep properly and some might be sleepy throughout. Then body aches, pains, muscle aches, as such. So there are so many physical symptoms, but it may vary from child to child. Also, there will be emotional symptoms like irritability. Their moods will be off time to time, and they might feel angry or sad for the slightest things and things like that. Then behavior-wise also, when someone feels stressed, they would sometimes might want to isolate themselves and be by themselves, or not to do the things that they were used to. I mean, they were doing earlier with a lot of happiness. So all these symptoms or the signs, it might change from child to child, and it depends. Then when it comes to depression, it is a bit more serious than stress or anxiety. All those symptoms I mentioned a while ago will be visible, but with added some of the symptoms like depressed mood, they might feel like crying for the slightest things, and overall being very negative about themselves and around the world. So these are some of the most common issues we see among teenagers.
How does social media affect student mental health negatively or positively?
Yes, so there are positive outcomes and negative outcomes in social media and digital devices. We all know we cannot live without digital devices or social media. Also, to some extent, it is needed for our growth and development. So managing this positive, negative, both the sides in a balanced way is the responsibility of teenagers and adults as well. It's not only for teenagers. But the positive outcomes, if we talk about, we learn a lot of things. Learning these days do happen through devices, right? Even school integrate a lot of digital medias and devices and all that for your education. So that is something we cannot avoid. But the personal responsibility as a person, as a child, as a teenager is what matters here, right? There's a limit for everything. So even when it comes to screen, whether it's social media or watching, YouTube, or watching certain videos or even educational related things, it's very important that you set your limits, because as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about stress, anxiety and other related issues, it affects our emotional and physical health as well. So if you're constantly in social media or any other device, that has a direct impact on your brain development and has a direct impact on your behaviors and emotional well-being. So the negative part would be if you don't manage your time properly and if you don't balance your other day-to-day things. Otherwise, I think it's good to go.
What advice do you have for students who experience burnouts or exhaustion?
So burnout, first of all, is not a medical condition. So I think that's good news, since it's not a medical condition, right? But if you don't manage stress, anxiety and other related let's say the psychological or mental health related problems, you might experience burnout. One of the main reasons for burnout is not managing work properly. So that doesn't mean you're not efficient and you're not doing your work properly. You might be overloaded with a lot of other things. Maybe your exams might be coming up, your sports tournaments might be coming up, or even you might have family responsibilities. So when all these things come up with time and things, if you can't manage or organize things, you might experience certain stress symptoms. Those also could be, just like burnout symptoms. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to differentiate whether this is stress, anxiety or burnout, right? But when you experience that, when you start to experience some of the changes physically, emotionally, there are always ways to identify and handle it at the very first moment itself. So I think other than complaining, okay, I'm experiencing burnout, I'm experiencing stress or depression, when you're feeling it, when you're experiencing it at the beginning, identifying and working on it is the most important part.
Could you please advise us how to do it?
Yes. So the first thing is, though we talk about we need to balance, balancing could be really difficult, it could be a challenge itself. Self-care is the most important thing here. Self-care is you loving yourself. How to love yourself? So physical care as a person, our human body also needs a lot of care, our mind also needs a lot of care. So to start with, maybe physical care, to have a regular exercise routine. If you are doing sports, that's amazing, that's great, right? Then have a proper sleep, at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep is very important. Then balanced diet, nutrition. I'm sure your parents are helping you with managing your nutrition facts and all that. So that is also very important as part of self-care. Then of course, when it comes to managing your emotions, you all as teenagers are experiencing a lot of emotions at the same time. Sometimes you might be even wondering, what am I feeling right now? Is it sadness, frustration or anger? So to work on those things, if you think you're constantly feeling sad, upset or negative about things, to reframe those thinking, negative thinking keeps us very slow, right? When we are negative about thinking, we cannot manage our studies, we cannot manage our sports or whatever extracurricular activities or whatever we are doing. So it has a direct impact on the relationships as well. So when we talk about self-care, along with the physical health, managing emotions and the network around us also is very important.
How can we help our own friends if we notice them struggling with emotional challenges?
Yes, so this you will often see when you are in the school, because as I told earlier, it's very normal to go through a lot of emotions and sometimes even confusing emotions. But at the same time, if you notice any of your friends are feeling lower than before, or you see certain significant changes in their behavior and moods, the first thing you can do is to listen to them if they reach out to you. And it's totally okay to walk up to them and to gently ask, are you okay? I think when people are struggling, they feel much better to see there are people to support them. But you must make sure you do it in a very private way, in a very gentle way, right? If you try to tell that to so many other people and talk about that person, and then if you go reach the student or the friend, they might have already heard, she or he might have already heard that they are talking about you. So that's going to be a serious problem. So in a very gentle way, in a very personal way, just go and ask how you are feeling. Are you okay? If there's anything to talk, I'm available. So that assurance has to be given. That's the first thing. Second one, suppose this friend that you approached decided to share their problem with you, whether it's a family issue or something in the school or bullying or whatever that bothers them. You make sure you keep her or his trust when they share those issues, right? You should make sure that you don't go and tell it around to everyone, because that's a responsibility you are taking when you are listening to that person. But having said that, if there are things that you cannot handle, there could be certain things that you actually don't know what to do, what to say, because you are in the same age category and you might not be experiencing any of those emotions or problems. So in that case, you might have to inform to an responsible adult. In school, of course, there are teachers or any other person that you're feeling comfortable with. It's always better to keep them informed with the consent of your friend. But there could be some issues that you might not have time to wait for that other person's consent. In that case, you can reach the school counselor, you can talk to your class teacher or any other adult that you feel comfortable.